What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? The news needs to calm the fuck down. It is Christmas, uh, and we were thinking about just taking a little bit of a break, doing the podcast stuff for this week, and just having a dead week. And I'm like, I don't know if we do that, if we're going to ever be able to catch back up again on just everything that's been happening. And so we didn't have a whole lot planned going into this. I actually texted Taylor the night before recording, and I'm like, do we have anything for this upcoming week? And he's like, no. I'm like, we might need to get somebody else on here to kind of help us riff through this. So we've got John Cooper joining us today, Counterpoint Politics. John, if you just want to introduce yourself, tell them who you are, where they find you, everything like that.
Yeah, no, I'm John Cooper, Counterpoint Politics. You might have seen me on TikTok or Instagram, just at that handle. You might have also seen me when Off Your Wagon joined us on our podcast called The Left Wing, which is also available on YouTube. And I'm sure if you like what they're saying, well, you'll probably like what we're saying too. He was on the show, a couple months ago?
Yeah. No, it was great. We didn't get to anything we planned on talking about on your show because, it went off the rails in a good way that quickly.
As every good podcast goes.
So we're kind of hoping for some of that here. We also got the live chat going when we're recording this. So we again don't pay, or while we try to keep it on topic, but we do check the comments every once in a while. Might respond to a little bit of that. So good morning, everybody there. Thanks for joining us. If you're listening to the recording, we appreciate it. And it's been an insanely busy news period for what is normally a very slow time of year. There's just not generally a lot going on this time of year. And it's not that way because we can't have nice things anymore. And I think just right off the bat is just Elon is doing Elon shit all the time.
Apparently, president, you mean?
President Musk.
I like to call him our shadow president.
I've been hearing people call Trump Assistant President Trump.
It's not bad.
Which I think is
Assistant
appropriate.
to the president.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. It's good clarification there, John.
Well, it was insane too because he was having that interview with Bibi Netanyahu for some reason, which I still don't know why Elon and Netanyahu are talking, or why they. I mean, I know why they're talking is because it's President Musk now, but he made that comment where he's like, so you technically can't be president because you weren't born here. And he's like, well, not officially. So like unofficially. And they joked about it. Like they're not even keeping it under wraps at this point. It's just right out there in the open.
And that's exactly what Donald said when he was. I was like, "Hey, is Trump going to realize that all the Democrats calling Elon President Musk is just a fucking bait, or is he going to take the bait like he always does?" And he just took the bait. He was like, "Oh no, guys, he can't be president. He's not born here." Like, yeah, that was the problem. That's now that that's cleared up, we realize he can't be manipulating you in the shadows. That couldn't be possible because he wasn't born here.
I mean, he just always knows the right thing to say at exactly the right time. It's incredible. Also, I know why Elon Musk was on the phone with Trump is because they were trying to swap notes on like how a proper apartheid should be ran, and they were just comparing and contrasting.
I mean, you got to ask the expert. He grew up during it, and it worked out really well for him. And Trump definitely needs some pointers because he's been trying to get there, but has been less successful. So,
and it really doesn't surprise me that we've had an uncharacteristically news-heavy Christmas, considering that the people who've been driving the news, like Elon and Donald Trump, have no family to spend time with that loves them. So that's probably why we're seeing so much more news come out at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they got to spend all their time on Twitter if they don't have anybody around them, right? Like that's what you do.
Well, it's insane, and it's also insane. Republicans are now apparently just consulting Elon Musk before policy decisions and shit. Like they almost shut down the government because Elon's like, yeah, I don't want you to pass a spending bill. Like he's not an elected official, and Trump, whose cabinet he might be a part of somehow in this fake Doge committee that they just made the fuck up. Like they're not even in office yet. So like why are you bypassing, the current elected officials for this? And it is a fucking insane timeline. And we knew though with the President Trump, President Musk stuff that this was going to go badly eventually for all of them. Like this was not a marriage made in heaven, and was not going to last very long. We're already starting to see that fall apart, both over the fact that Trump is now getting frustrated that people are calling Musk president, but they ran on a very anti-immigration platform, and now they're like, yeah, well, we didn't exactly mean that. Like, we still need immigrants because of all of you dumb motherfuckers have cut education for so long that there's not smart enough people in the United States to fill our tech bro needs anymore. And they're having a whole blow up over that. Have you been seeing this?
Yeah, every time I look at it, it reminds me of leopards ate their face. Like that's like that tweet just pops up every time, just like, yep, these guys are learning the leopards are going to eat their face too, and we aren't even into the Trump presidency yet. Like it is really stunning. I knew it would happen. I didn't think it would happen so early because I'm seeing people like, oh, they weren't talking about illegal immigrants being deported on the. I'm like, yes, they fucking were. Like, I don't understand. What were you listening to?
Well, and it's funny too because Vivek's parents came on H-1B visas. Trump or Elon came on H-1B visas. Melania came on an H-1B visa. Like half the fucking Trump sphere at the moment is in the United States because of an H-1B visa, and then he's like, he ran on getting rid of all of these people, and now they're like, yeah, we just said that because we know you hate brown people, but actually the brown people make us all of the money, and we need them. We need some of them to stay, and then the diehard mag is like, no, all brown people bad, get them the fuck out, and Trump is just like in the middle with no idea what to do. It's fun to watch.
I mean, it's really like the most poetic thing I could possibly like imagine as like a car driving off a cliff sort of thing, in that like Vivek is literally an anchor baby, and he's like trying to support policies that would make him eligible to be deported, and then you have Elon, who literally fired 90% of his workforce at Twitter when he bought it, who weren't on an H-1B visa. So like if you're paying attention at all, like if you have a single brain cell left, I think you're seeing this and you're like, this was not good. These guys who we just elected to the highest office possible, this was the L, a big L.
Yeah. Major L. And speaking of Twitter, it's also funny because now apparently MAGA's complaining about Elon banning them if they don't agree with him on the H-1B visa thing, and it's just like bashed into free speech bullshit. And now they're fighting themselves, and it's. I mean, we all knew this was going to happen, and to your point, John, I never dreamed it would happen so quickly. Like I thought we'd get through the inauguration before just the complete meltdown started, but we're in the fuck around and find out phase already. I mean, when he came out and said, yeah, guys, you know how I won because I told you I was going to make grocery prices cheaper? Turns out I can't actually really do that. It's hard to do. Probably not going to happen, guys. Also, groceries is a word I totally invented. Nobody ever said that before. I said groceries. I was talking about groceries. And everybody's like, yeah, groceries are cool. I'm going to vote for that guy. Like, literally the shit that come out of this motherfucker's mouth. And they didn't research tariffs beforehand, and now Canada's like, yep, we will literally shut your fucking lights off in Michigan and Wisconsin and New York if you want to tariff us, and we will stop subsidizing all of the oil we send you at highly reduced rates if you want to tariff us. It's just insane. I don't know, and it's gonna suck for all of us, but the I told you so is sweet.
It is sweet, and it's also reassuring because I don't know about you guys. In the immediate aftermath of Trump winning the election, my mind was going to worst case scenario. I was like, oh, he's going to hold a trifecta. Really, really bad things can happen. And really, really bad things can still happen. But I'm getting reassured that the incompetence of the right is going to prevent the worst of the things from happening. Like, if we just get 2 years of clusterfuck incompetence, that's not good. but it's not worst case scenario. And this is the fact that he hasn't even taken office yet, and they're
Yeah.
already eating each other in ways that, unlike when the left eats each other, like it doesn't actually hurt Democrats because we don't actually have any presence in the Democratic Party. But
Yeah.
for the Republicans, that's a big fucking difference because there are significant camps within the Republican Party, and just the mere fact that the President Musk stuff is seemingly having an impact on the actual like actions of Congress indicates to me that Trump is not the all-powerful dictator to be that we may have thought he would have been. There are we can let the kaijus fight and eat each other while we sit on the sidelines, and I think that we'll survive the next 2 years doing that.
Well, I mean, the incompetence is what saved us the last Trump presidency, right? The fact that they couldn't do any of the things that they themselves wanted to do when they had all the power those first 2 years. And coming into this, I'm like, they're not going to make that same mistake twice. Like, they are coming in with a plan because last time they didn't expect to win. They were sitting there on election day as stunned and shocked as everyone else, you know?
Well,
And
I think they were actually hoping they would lose, so then they could say, stop the steal again, and then like go full MAGA. And then when they didn't get to do that because Trump actually won an election, fairly, they were like, oh, I guess it does work. I don't know. I guess we'll just sit here and be happy and like.
But coming into this with that level of what I thought would be preparedness, and they're definitely more prepared than they were the last time, but not nearly as prepared and cohesive as I expected them to be. And we all knew that Trump was never the person in charge that he thinks he is. He controls his cult, but he has no idea how policy works, and he will sign the shit that people put in front of him. He doesn't know what he's signing. He doesn't know this is what they tell me to say, and if I can remember it and not go off on a crazy tangent, I will say it, and then he forgets, and he says a bunch of other dumb shit, and they've just been utilizing him to be in power. But what I'm most worried about is if he, dies or they 25th Amendment him and, put J.D. Vance in, and then we don't have that. And that's the real dictator to be situation. That is the worst case scenario, is his unpredictability and the inability to control Trump's emotions and just ego and everything is the best thing for us at the moment, because that's what keeps the whole thing always crashing around itself. And if we lose that, which is a very real possibility, then I'm very nervous as to what could happen.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that really scared me about that was like I always think, well, most dictators are emotionally unstable little shits. So like why is it that other dictators who have been as much or if not more emotionally unstable than Donald Trump have risen to power and have done really bad shit? And I think that the answer honestly is that the military, like they had the military. And that's like the biggest thing Trump does not, he did not have it in his first term. The military did not really get on board. And when I say the military, I'm pretty darn sure that like the military voted for Trump, in general.
Yeah, like
but the
60%.
high level generals did not.
No.
And they stopped him from doing a lot of things that he wanted to do. And I just cannot see the military and every single like actual member working for the government, because I thought about this with the CDC too, and how they want to get rid of vaccines. Like, you think the actual fucking scientists who have dedicated their lives to public service and public health are gonna like start actually implementing this fucking brain dead policy that RFK Jr. wants to implement? I don't think so. I think we're gonna see 2 years of just all of the fucking gears being clusterfucked without them having any actual power to unjam them, because they don't actually have the support of the people they need in order to do it.
Right. Well, and then even within the Republican Party itself, I mean, we've seen it where they can't even keep their own Speaker of the House in a position of power when they have the power to do so, because one faction of Republicans doesn't agree with what the other faction of Republicans are like. Look, the government still has to sort of function, guys, and sometimes we have to compromise a little bit on the shit that we pretend that we want. And they're like, no, it's all or nothing, and so it's always going to be nothing. And they're like, we can't do that. And they're like, fine, we'll fire the Speaker of the House. It's like that's still going to exist, I think, within Congress because we've got enough of these Looney Tunes from the MAGA party, and there's still a narrow enough margin within Congress to make stuff fall apart, even when they do have control. So that's a little bit reassuring. But then we also look at the history over the last 40, 50 years since Reagan got elected, and the Heritage Foundation, implemented its mandate for leadership in 1980, and kind of where that's gotten us to. And we've been going the wrong direction the whole time, and that incompetence, and none of that has saved us to this point. And we're kind of getting to that final chapter. And I don't know. I want to try to be somewhat optimistic, but it's fucking hard.
So here's the thing, though. Like, I remember, I'm not an old man, but I'm old enough to remember when Republicans were incredibly competent. Like, I remember, like, freaking Mitch McConnell. I hate the guy. He's an evil fucking monster, but he's one of the most competent politicians I've ever seen in my entire goddamn life. He tends to get what he wants. And he is in opposition to Trump because Trump is incompetent. The Trump wing of the party is incompetent. These are the people who brought you 4 Seasons landscaping, right? Like, these are not people who know how to get shit done. So you're right. Republicans and, the conservative movement in general over the last, 20, 30, 40 years has been incredibly competent and effective, but they have not really proven that they can jump into full-bore fascism, at least with Trump at the head of the snake, and continue to be competent in that way. So if you're comparing, if you think about what the, Boehner-era Republicans could have done with this level of fascism and power in America, yeah, that's really scary. But this is not Boehner. This is not even Mitch McConnell. This is Donald motherfucking Trump running this party. And already we're seeing the cracks, and he has not even taken power yet. So again, really bad things can happen, but I'm feeling way more optimistic than I was, a month ago.
Yeah, if this is a portend of what will come, we're in good shape as far as the least bad situation probably that we could have possibly gotten from Trump being elected. So yeah, I mean that is hope. If in a time where we kind of felt like there wasn't much to go around. So
I have long said that Trump is the Republicans' Frankenstein's monster. They spent years building this, and now it's become self-aware and alive, and they can't control it anymore. Which is what you see with the Dick Cheneys and the Mitch McConnells. They aren't abandoning ship because they really hate where, the Republican Party is headed. They're abandoning ship because they're mad that they no longer control the direction and the narrative of the party that they spent so long building.
To be fair, Mitch McConnell's has left the ship because his brain has already exited his body a while ago. There's not much going on up there.
Yeah, he's blue screening pretty hard.
Exactly.
Speaking of old people, Pelosi also doing Pelosi shit again. Pelosi is the Mitch McConnell of the Democratic Party at this point. Like
100%.
There's no, and I've done a fair amount of content on this recently, just because I'm so vehemently annoyed and just depressed and disappointed that it's like we get beat to death with these lessons over and over and over again of like, clearly the old guard approach of doing something is doing nothing but giving us more Trump, more fascism, more going back, more expensive everything, and they are just never going to learn. It's like how many times do we have to have this lesson? And we saw that with the oversight committee vote with AOC getting passed over because Nancy Pelosi from her fucking hospital bed with her broken hip. If that's not just, it would be comical if it wasn't, real life, that this old lady who's literally in a hospital with her broken hip fucking whipped the entire Congress to vote against younger leadership coming in and trying something new. And it was just like, it would have been just the smallest consolation prize, the smallest, like, I'm sorry we've been ignoring everyone for shit that we clearly are too incompetent to achieve by just allowing, people under 160 years old to have some say in Washington, and they're just like, go fuck yourself. And right now is the time to criticize the Democratic Party as hard as we can, because we're a couple of years before a re-election. We need to be loud about our discontent, and hopefully they start listening and making some changes.
No, don't you know, if you criticize the Democrats now, then you're just supporting Trump. You should be saving your criticism for Trump and the Republicans. What's the point of criticizing Democrats? It really pisses me off that people are just not learning their fucking lesson. And when I say people, I mean liberal moderates, because God damn it, look at what the right has been able to accomplish with the incompetent assholes that they are. You can believe a couple things here. You can believe that the Democrats have been playing things right, and Donald Trump he's just such a masterful politician that he's outplayed them. Or maybe Trump is the idiot that you think he is, and your fucking leaders just lost to him. And it's insane that the thing that pissed me off most here about the whole AOC storyline, it's not really about AOC. I don't care if AOC gets the position. I want her to, I am a huge AOC supporter. I think that she is the future of this party and this movement, but she'll be fine. What won't be fine is the Democratic Party, because the reasoning they gave was just, oh yeah, it was the other guy's turn. He had seniority. And it's like, who the fuck? Do you care about beating Republicans at all? Do you care? Why are you here if you're talking about seniority? What does that have to do with bettering people's lives? It has nothing to do with that. It has entirely to do with your own petty fucking ego. And that's what most of the Democratic politicians in Congress, that is their mindset. It still isn't, hey guys, we need to beat these fascists. It's, hey guys, we need to make sure our interests are what matters most to us.
Yeah, I did see an interview with the head of the Progressive Caucus. He went on Breaking Points. Sorry, much
very different things.
Very different things. But they anyway. So he went on there and he talked about that whole situation. He did say that the person they chose was generally a pretty competent guy, and it's okay, that's great. He's older. Obviously, he's got health issues. It seems like he was possibly just kind of playing the party, politics a little bit and trying to seem like, they were okay with it, even though I think AOC is a better direction for the Democratic Party, and then B is just right now, if you you strike when the iron's hot, right? And so people care about that. I don't think that people should care about who gets appointed, in the politics of how that gets decided, but it does bring up an image of how the Democratic Party operates, and the perception of that matters to people who don't actually, they're normies. They don't follow politics, so they see something like, AOC's getting dissed by her own party, they must hate her now. That permeates throughout the discussion of what she actually could do for the Democratic Party.
Well, and it just goes back to it's more messaging and symbolism of the Democratic Party and how they continuously fail at it. Does it really matter if she made the committee or not in the grand scheme of things? Probably not a huge life-altering decision, but it's the moment that it happened and how it happened. We just lost to Donald Trump again. We had a lot of frustrations, obviously, with all of the younger people just disengaging because they don't feel like they're being heard by anybody in Washington, especially after the protests for Palestine and all of that stuff. And they just ignored them. They arrested them. They ridiculed them for making that their one issue to vote on. And while we all had our frustrations with them, not biting the bullet and doing it for the greater good, you can't criticize, you can't sit up there and not do any introspection in that moment and be like, they didn't earn the vote. They said your issue that you're telling us is important to you doesn't fucking matter. We're not even going to acknowledge it. We're not even going to pay lip service to it. And then we're just going to criticize you for not showing up and voting for us and giving us something that we never earned. And it's just insane. This was one of those moments where we could have been like, hey guys, we saw where we fucked up. here's us just recognizing that with this type of thing. And it just goes back to Democratic messaging, always missing the mark. And Democratic branding, always missing the mark. And that's where it really landed for me. It was like, I don't care. I barely know what the Oversight Committee does. Obviously not a whole lot of oversight because Congress gets away with fucking everything. But they didn't take the opportunity to change the message, change the narrative, and acknowledge the people who feel disenfranchised.
And that's the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. And why it really frustrates me when people defend the Democratic Party is because over on the Republican side, they can blame incompetence for not delivering on their promises and not delivering results for their constituents.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear and obvious. Like that is not how the Democrats operate. Nancy Pelosi has shitloads of competence. She got a sitting president to step down and stop seeking re-election. Do you know how fucking hard that is? Do you know what level of political skill and power you need in order to get the most powerful man in the world to put down his arms? That is very difficult to do. It is not that Nancy Pelosi is incompetent and accidentally doing the wrong thing. No, she is achieving her goals. It's not like she's shooting and missing. She's shooting and hitting her mark. It's just that her goals are not the goals of the American people. Her goals are continuing to keep power within the Democratic Party. Keeping to these people, and it needs to be very clearly understood, being in power within the Democratic Party is more important than being in power of the United States government. They would rather rule the Democratic Party as an oppositional force to the Republicans than rule the country and improve people's lives. And it's so clear and obvious, and it pisses me off how people just continue to refuse to see it.
Absolutely. She's got the biggest swinging dick in Washington. There's no two questions about that. Like she's ruled the party even when she's not Speaker of the House and she relinquishes her positions of power. She's still back there, obviously pulling all of the levers, and it's just frustrating. And I mean, I've been beating this drum for a few days now, kind of loudly, but like term limits and or age limits just need to be a thing at this point because you can't sit in a position of power, influence, and money for that many decades and keep touch with the people that you're supposed to represent. It's just not possible. And then you can't be that age and make competent, understanding, empathetic decisions for people who are, 50, 60 years younger than you. Like it's impossible.
And it also underscores how actually easy it would be to win right now. Because as we said, the reason the Republicans are so incompetent is because most of the Trump voters didn't really know what the fuck was going on. And this isn't me, just disparaging people that I disagree with. This is, if you look at the data of low information voters, the vast majority of them voted for Trump. High information voters, the vast majority of them voted for Kamala. And a lot of these people that could attach themselves to the Democratic Party, they aren't really voting for Trump. They're voting against the establishment. And until the Democrats learn that left-right is becoming less and less of the actual political divide in this country, and it's establishment versus anti-establishment in reality, until they learn that lesson and they continue to float out Pelosi's, they continue to put 70-year-old cancer patients in positions of power over young up-and-coming people that actually can communicate to the American people, the more they do that, the more they're going to lose. It's the only kind of politics that Donald Trump is capable of beating. Because he can't beat another anti-establishment person that can actually enunciate why their policies are going to work, because that's all he's got. But if he's running against Joe Biden, he's running against, whoever Nancy Pelosi picks, then it's easy to be like, yeah, no, Nancy Pelosi, she's out for herself. She's not out there for you. And I have to be like, yeah, you're right. Unfortunately, here's why I think you're wrong about Donald Trump being the answer. It would be so much easier if I could just be like, no, you're wrong, Bernie. He's clearly the guy. And even Joe Rogan can see that. But for whatever fucking reason, the people who get paid millions and millions of dollars to consult the Democratic Party can't figure this the fuck out. I wonder why.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there could be a money trail somewhere along the line that shows, where people are receiving money from to get into office and who is providing that money. I feel like there should be some way to, account for that, but
Yeah, if
I,
only we
no,
had some open secrets to look something like, you know.
yeah.
Uh, no, it's funny though too when you talk about having to just be like acknowledging that yeah, Pelosi sucks and does not have our best interest at heart is because like it's so often the go-to talking to Republicans. They're like, yeah, Nancy Pelosi, and they always think it's like a gotcha, a dig when they're like dissing on Nancy Pelosi. It's like, motherfucker, we hate her too, but for reasons that actually exist. Like you're not hurting my feelings by shit talking Nancy Pelosi, and you're not going to get a gotcha on like, oh yeah, but you think Nancy Pelosi should be like, no, I don't think Nancy Pelosi should be on this planet anymore. Like, we're on the same page here. Like, again, I've got real legitimate reasons why I hate her, and you're just like, Tucker Carlson told me she sucks, but still, like, it's not the gotcha you think it is because we can criticize our own party. We're not in a cult. It's not a team. I'm not a cheerleader. Like, stop being so fucking weird. Uh, but the up and down thing I think is really come in full swing. Obviously, with like Luigi folk heroing himself more and more every day, and it just seems like every attempt that they make to try to pivot that narrative and make him the bad guy and make our reaction to it the problem of you're not being empathetic and you're cheering on death. It's like yeah, they've been killing us for years. I mean, in every sense of the word, Brian Thompson is a genocidal maniac, right? He's a mass murderer. You deny people life saving care for profit, you are killing them. Like you are murdering those people if they would have been saved if you just provided them the care that they were owed. And I've really been enjoying that. Then obviously with the Brianna Boston thing, and they try to make an example of her, and that backfires, and the whole perp walk thing, and even going as far as putting out pictures of him pissing himself to try to make it look like he's less human or something, and that even backfires on them. And chewing out the lady who turned him in, and just dissing on McDonald's and all of that. And I don't know, are you guys feeling like it might be the spark of a revolution?
I feel two ways about it. On one end of things, no, and more so not. I'm not saying that it isn't moving in a relatively good direction. I'm more so saying this ain't quite it. Like he's not fucking Rosa Parks. Like it's going to increase conversations about class consciousness. It's going to make a lot of people do a lot of research that a lot of people in power don't want them to do. It's going to, as you said, the more that they kind of push him down, the more it just depicts the exact picture that we would want them to depict. Like when they perp walked him, I was like, oh my god, these people are fucking morons. It actually reminds me a lot of Israel, where it's like, hey, if Israel had just like let things be and continue on their course, they could have continued just slowly annexing more and more territory over the course of decades, and
We
no
would have
one would have had a
ignored
problem.
always done. Mm-hmm.
But for the past year, we've seen the needle move more on Palestine than before in my entire life. Like a year and a half ago, when I was making pro-Palestinian content, straight up, you're anti-Semitic, you're whatever. Like, just that's the knee-jerk reaction. Now it's a legitimate conversation that people are allowed to have, and I feel like that is what we are going to see with healthcare, with class consciousness. This ain't going to change it. I don't think that our fucking relationship with Israel is going to change right now.
No.
But I think that in 40 years, when, all of the people who were raised in that propaganda environment are dead, and the people who are now part of this environment are in power, yeah, we might see that change. I think that we have a similar situation here. I don't think this is enough to spark any sort of immediate movement, or else we would have fucking seen something by now.
Yeah.
But like, it is getting people to talk a lot, and especially getting people to talk across the aisle about how, hey, we shouldn't be on the same side here. For whatever reason, the guys at the top seem to be against us on both sides.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree. Did you have something to say, Taylor?
No, I mean it's obviously it's disappointing and sad that you need acts of violence like this to start this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we've kind of already alluded to it that, but it is unfortunately sometimes necessary over the course of history, looking back at violent revolutions, and you see it and you're like, wow, like that totally was legitimate in the way
Hmm.
that a populace is being treated, and it's tough because we're definitely not promoting violence in any way on our platforms, I think, and we're definitely not trying to be like, yeah, we need an armed revolution to like save us all. Um, but like it, I mean, it's kind of working to an extent at this point.
Yeah. Well, every time somebody brings it up, it's like this isn't the way, and violence is always wrong, and all of that. I'm like, yeah, it ethically, morally, sure, but John Brown did nothing wrong, right? And I always go back to that. It's like without John Brown and the border wars and effectively making Kansas a free state, slavery exists for who knows how much longer, a while. That was a huge because Kansas entering the Union as a free state is what took the voting power away from the South to maintain slavery legislatively, which is what led to the Civil War and everything. But like John Brown took the approach of violence, and obviously, I don't think anybody's going to come out here and say, yeah, he shouldn't have beheaded Klan members with a broadsword like that. That was the right moment at the right time to make the change that was needed. Because they were literally owning people, and it's sad that it got to that point then, and it's sad that it's getting to that point now. But people are legitimately dying by the tens of thousands because of the system that they refuse to let us change democratically.
Right? Was it JFK or MLK? If you don't give people change peacefully, they'll get it through like rioting, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit of both. You're kind of paraphrasing both of them and smashing it into
Yeah.
one, but they both. JFK said, if you make peaceful revolution impossible, you'll make violent revolution inevitable, and MLK said riots are the language of the unheard. So like
Yeah.
you kind of paraphrase both of them together there.
Super quotes.
Two great thinkers, one amazing quote. I don't know.
And it's funny because MLK is always brought up as the example of, oh, you can do it peacefully, yada, yada, yada. And, I am a pacifist. I always advocate for nonviolent revolution. Here's the difference between me and the people who are clutching their pearls over Luigi here. I advocate for nonviolent revolution, not because I think violent revolution is morally wrong, but because I think that it is less effective. If you look back through history, nonviolent revolution has doubled the success rate of violent revolution, and that's because it tends to be hard to get people on your side when you're killing innocent people.
Yeah.
It tends to be very difficult. But if you look back at history, like you mentioned here, like John Brown was objectively correct.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who is criticizing Luigi now, I guarantee you, if you transported them back to John Brown's time, they would have been like, "Yeah, no, I agree that slavery is wrong, but we just have to get rid of it through the proper channels." And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I will admit that comparing our current medical care system to the system of chattel slavery is very much a faulty comparison. But the point there still stands of, okay, you can denounce the violence as long as you denounce the fucking uh, systemic violence more. Just like with Israel. I'll fucking condemn Hamas every single day of the week. I don't think what they did was great. I don't think innocent people should be dragged through the streets like that. However, I condemn the system that is leading to the violent conflict and killing way more people than the people who are under the microscope right now. And
Mm-hmm.
it is kind of crazy how many parallels you can draw between these events that really are unrelated, but philosophically are very similar.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think because again, I think all of this ties into it is Amazon just hired the fucking Pinkertons to break unions,
Yeah.
which is 19 fucking 15 again, apparently, and
No,
going
they didn't need to hire the Pinkertons. The cops just helped them for free,
yeah,
bro.
let's do it for free. But like going back again to violent revolutions and everything, this is this is just a shitty rerun, a shitty repeat, a shitty remake of what we've already been through a century ago, and that was violent. You know, the Battle of Blair Mountain came because, again, people like the Pinkertons and the police were breaking unions over and over and over again, and not giving the workers what they needed. And here we are again. Like, literally, they didn't even change the characters. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same. It's the same shit, and uh, it's that kind of stuff where it's like, I don't think Luigi is necessarily the spark of a revolution, but I do think that the way that they're responding to everything at this time is putting a lot of pressure on the entire populace to push it that way. And I don't know if that's a 40-year timeline or not. I don't know if we've got 40 years as a country before we fall as a nation and an empire at the rate we're going or the direction we're going. But I know making decisions like that very publicly, to push down unions, to push down, you know, people advocating for civil rights, for humanity, advocating against crimes against humanity, and then just obviously advocating for just the basic right to live is there's only really one outcome unless there's some major peaceful change from the powers that be.
Here's the thing. We are entering into an incredibly volatile time period because a couple of things are all going to be happening at once over the next 20 years that is just a dry powder keg ready to explode. Because on one hand, we are going to see the largest generational transfer of wealth in human history. Between when the baby boomers start dying rapidly, and that wealth transitions down to the millennials, there's gonna be a free for all. And the thing about millennials is that they're the first generation in history to not get more conservative as they age. We have actually gotten more progressive as we have gotten older. The big question is, when we get the money, will that continue? But we're going to see that happen at the same time. Climate wars are going to start happening, and B, the white majority population is suddenly going to become the plurality instead of the majority, and the white power structures that be are not going to be able to hold on to power through democratic methods anymore. And when all three of those things happen in the next 20 years, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be rapid change in one direction or the other.
I think you're a little optimistic about that transfer of wealth because the capitalist oligarchs have figured that out, and it's called old folks' homes, you know, where they put our boomer parents in them, and then they take all of their money in that transfer process before it gets to us, which is kind of what they've done this whole time. I mean, I've seen it left and right. It's sad, but that's kind of what's happening here, and you know, it's I don't know that we will get the transfer of wealth they've been claiming we are going to get, and especially if this remains unchecked. You know, if we give old people universal care that they need, like we should be for everybody, then yeah, that wealth should transfer. But I don't see that happening again without some sort of massive change coming peacefully or not peacefully, and it doesn't look like they're gonna just hand it out to us, you know, because we're asking nicely.
It's definitely not going to come easy. But it's pretty crazy. The next 4 years are going to be really, really indicative of probably where we're going to end up. I think if there's any sort of semblance of power remaining within MAGA by the end of the next 4 years, probably we end up with the worst case scenario for just the entire planet, with climate change obviously not being addressed at all in the next 4 years, and then continuing that trend if MAGA's still in around, then plus just the socioeconomic status of everyday Americans is going to obviously be hit with any economic policies that they put out there. So far, everything sucks. So it's wild.
Hey, we have actually been given the solution though, because Trump keeps talking about how he wants to buy Greenland, and Denmark gave him a counter offer, saying that he would buy the United States, or Greenland, or Denmark would buy the United States minus, you know, the U.S. government. So like, I'm hoping can we Elon Musk him into that? Like, he made the offer, and we got to do it now. Like, they can't back out, because that sounds like the best possible solution. You know, the United States of Denmark sounds great to me. I'm free healthcare, some of the happiest people in the world. We'll get Greenland in the process. You know, everything works out like that. Just
Yeah, I
It,
mean, no less free, if not more free, right?
yeah.
so it's funny, like we're like, haha, like yeah, that seems so ridiculous, but honestly, like if you were to just like put that in a blind, pick of hey, these are a couple things that actually happened under the presidency, and then you just like put that in there, and 5 years later we're asked to remember which one was real. It can happen, bro. Like I can be pretty confident that things aren't going to go. I don't think we're going to see the fall of an empire here, but I can't tell you what we're going to see because, again, we are not even started yet, and this is our pre-starting point is right now. It only gets wilder from here.
I mean,
Well,
does it get more wild than a sitting House of Representative member not making a single vote for 6 months, and then we find her in a dementia ward, and like nobody's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be in Congress anymore. We'll see you next session. Like,
Taylor, this should happen during the Biden presidency with
I
Diana
know.
Feinstein. That's nothing new. That's the expected norm at this point.
true. I guess
We
I
haven't
should have
even gotten to
expected
the
that.
wild shit yet.
Should have expected that. You're right. My bad. That was on me.
I mean, most of Congress is, you know, I'm pretty sure stays at the dementia ward now, or they've got full time staff to keep them going. You know, fucking Trump and Biden both do at this point.
hmm
And it's pretty much the only people we have to select from. It's like we've got this old folks home. Pick which one you want, and that's what we get to choose from.
But
Uh,
I do see I see the winds of change there too because yeah, we have the old folks home, but the thing about old folks home is that they don't have long established residencies typically. These people who we are talking about and criticizing here, who have had the keys to the parties for a long fucking time between Pelosi, Biden, McConnell, like they're not long for this world. Half of them are not going to survive the Trump presidency, and I don't mean that democratically. This is it,
I want to believe you, but then we
Mhm.
like look at Chuck Grassley, and we've been saying that about him for 20 fucking years.
But so yeah, I agree. The most likely course of events is the one that just it sucks the most for us, and that's just things continue forward as they may be. But if you look at the history of like civil unrest, right? The times with the most civil unrest across countries, like this isn't just the US, this is like globally, are the times when wealth inequality is increasing. It is really the only metric that correlates with civil unrest, pretty much all the time is wealth inequality.
Yep.
And as things continue along the status quo, as you are worried that they will be, and rightfully predicting they will continue because that's the way it has always happened, that is going to continue to grow, and it's growing rapidly, more rapidly than it's been in my entire lifetime. And that is going to lead to more Luigis. That's going to lead to more January 6s. That's going to lead to a lot more violent conflict. And the more of that you have, the more opportunity there is in that chaos for people to take control. And you're right, the bad people can take control.
Mm-hmm.
But the nice thing is that it's the only time that the good people can take control too. Because I'll tell you what, one thing Donald Trump did that fucked it up for the powers that be is he accelerated the process. He is accelerationism incarnate because he proved to everyone that you don't have to have these, establishment connections to become the president of the United States. You can be a total outsider as long as you have enough money. And again, Donald Trump didn't have that much money. It's not like he's fucking Elon, He has a normal amount of extremely rich people money. If someone like a Luigi, right? And this is my biggest criticism of Luigi is that someone with that, money, if you're going to be a class trader, there are more efficient ways to do it than to just pop one guy off. And if you're going to go that route, at least pop a couple more before you like hand yourself in, essentially.
Yeah, I was
Like,
hoping he was going to go a little more Boondock Saints for us, you know?
exactly. Like I'm not one that says Luigi is some savior, because if he was, he would have done things a little more effectively. But
Yeah.
like the point still is, there's going to be chaos, and chaos is a ladder, and it's the only time that someone who actually has the right intentions at heart can actually take power. Like Bernie
Mhm.
Sanders, try as he might, in an environment that isn't chaos, has not been able to win because the establishment forms around him. But if the
Mhm.
establishment is weakened by the chaos, someone like him can take power. Won't be him because he's fucking 90, but
Mhm.
it can be someone.
Yo. No, it's true. I'm kind of on that weird note though of our trending towards fascism and things we didn't have on our bingo card. Trump might be saving TikTok, which is weird because obviously he's hated TikTok in the past, and it's not exactly a beneficial platform to have around for the powers that be because we get to do stuff like this, right? Uh, so I don't know. It's a weird time to be.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
on one
mean,
hand,
on one hand,
it's just him being a complete narcissist and him thinking that, oh, I can save this thing and I'm the only person who can negotiate a reasonable, endpoint where we satisfy the national security needs, but also don't violate any First Amendment or bring questions to whether that's a First Amendment violation or not. So let's not have the lawsuit. I don't really understand beyond that, like why he's doing it, because I don't think in any world TikTok is a net positive for Trump. But I guess it's just his narcissism.
Oh no! So first of all, I just have to say, if Donald Trump is listening to this right now, as a leftist, I would be in tears if he saved TikTok. It would really just make me and all my liberal friends cry, and we would be in so much pain. And I just really hope he doesn't do it. That being said, it's I read it's Barron Trump just telling him that, like, yeah, no, the dudes on TikTok are the reason that like you outperformed in the youth vote, and that's what made him change his mind. And I'm like, yeah, no, that tracks
Yep.
100%. It doesn't matter, because that's the thing. Again, this is not some high level of competence. You're right, it doesn't actually benefit him, but as long as people like gas him up and tell him that it benefits him, he'll believe them. As like, and that's. I also said, like, I've not, as someone who is very invested in TikTok, someone who spends a lot of time making content for TikTok, who has a financial incentive to continue making content for TikTok. Not a huge one, not as much as it should be, but still, it'll hurt if it leaves a little bit. But like, I've never been worried it's going anywhere, because there's just too much money
That's
in TikTok that, like, it's good. They're just gonna figure out how to keep making money off of us. Like, there's
mhm.
no way they don't figure it out. They wouldn't really kill a golden goose like that.
Yeah, and I've felt the same way, but every time I get overly confident about something like that, like, hey, there's no way Donald Trump could ever be president again. You just wrong every time, like I'm always wrong about that stuff. So when the appeals court didn't reverse the ban, I was like, oh, maybe this really is the way it's gonna go. I guess I don't know. Yeah,
Well,
it's
the other it's going to the Supreme Court now, and it is a very like clear cut First Amendment case,
mm-hmm.
and it really does piss me off. The Democrats, I actually, at least they're ideologically consistent. The establishment liberal moderates have often been the least on the side of free speech of all the different
Yeah.
political ideologies, but like, I guess the tankies may be the least so. But the people who are ostensibly for free speech, your Elon Musk Republicans, they aren't pissed off enough about this. Like they
Mm-hmm.
really should be way more pissed off about the government just saying, "Hey guys, we need to delete this entire channel of communication that millions of Americans rely on, and we have reasons for national security that we're not going to share with you at all." And
Mm-hmm.
that's just bullshit. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I can have a conversation with you if you're a conservative every single day of the week. But if you're gonna say you're not, that doesn't piss you off, like, Why? Like, Biden did it. Like, why aren't you pissed off about this?
Yeah. But that's the thing is they're not for free speech. They're for not being allowed to say whatever hateful bullying shit they want to say on whatever private platform they feel they should be allowed to say it on, which is not free speech, and they just don't know what free speech is. But they cheer left and right when people like us get silenced. They love that. They would put in any type of. I mean, obviously, it comes to voting. Voting's a form of free speech, right? Like that's a intrinsic part of making your voice heard in a political system, and they are all for putting in as many restrictions as possible to that process. Like they absolutely hate free speech. They just hate not being allowed to say whatever the fuck they want to say without having consequences.
The entire summation of the conservative ideology is what furthers the interests of my in-group, good. What hurts the interests of my in-group, bad. Whenever you are like, hey, this doesn't seem like it's ideologically consistent at all, they seem like they're being hypocrites. No, it is ideologically consistent. It's just not in the ideology that's actually being discussed. It's in this benefits my in-group, therefore it is good. And you see this over and over and over again. And I said conservatives very specifically there because I do not mean Republicans. I mean, basically, everyone to the right of us, because you see this with fucking liberal moderates all the goddamn time, where it's like, oh, well, my guy, Joe Biden, he should keep running. Even though he's clearly a walking corpse, he's the guy. He's our guy. We're going to stick with him. The establishment Democrats didn't do anything wrong. It's actually you leftists who, even though data proves that you vote at a higher proportion than we do, it's your fucking problem that we lost because you were too critical. And it's like, fuck you. Just like, stop it. Let's be honest with ourselves. Have an actual dialogue about what is wrong, what is broken, and how we can fix it. And things will be fixed. But if you're just, looking out for your own interests, yeah, you're right. Democracy ain't going to work that way.
Absolutely. And that is actually a great transition into the stuff that Taylor put into our outline here for the future of democratic strategy and democratic messaging. So I feel like I've been talking over Taylor for quite a while here, so I'll let him take this one away.
Oh, it's all good. I guess I listened to a bunch of your stuff today, and I agreed with like 99% of it. I couldn't even really find any points where I was like, I kind of am like, that's not quite exactly what I do, but it was almost
That's because I'm always right, Taylor. So that's
well, I have to concede you at this point. Up till now, from what I know, I agree. And one of the couple things that I kind of took away was that you are definitely for bringing the media machine that is social media to the Democratic Party in some form or manner. Similar to right-wing YouTube that essentially is owned by the space is generally owned by right-wing commentary at the moment. Though I do argue that there are actually plenty of left-wing commentators who are just not being propped up or advertised or marketed by Democrats in general.
We haven't found out how to get that George Soros money, that we've been promised this whole time by Republicans, and we're just like, I don't know if they're sending the check to the wrong house or how that works. Did I fill out the paperwork correctly? I don't know what it is, but I was promised all kinds of George Soros money, and I'm still waiting.
Right, and I guess I also watch Hassan Pikers. I'm sure you know of and are at least a decent fan of, who went on CNN and was like, I don't think we can Joe Rogan podcast ourselves out of this issue that is the Democrats just losing election after election. I guess how do you respond to like a question like or an answer like that?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a little bit. They're seeing the end result and they're not understanding how we got here, because the whole, find the leftist Joe Rogan. Hassan's right, and I haven't actually heard that specific comment, so I don't want to play like, armchair QB here too much. Yeah. But what I imagine that he's saying is like, yeah, because Hassan's been on this track for years of, hey, we are abandoning, and by we I mean the Democratic Party and the establishment of the left in general, is abandoning so many outlets and so many channels of communication because we're afraid of platforming Republicans or whatever. When Bernie Sanders went on Joe Rogan and got fucking Joe Rogan's endorsement in 2020, this is not some ancient goddamn history, this is the last election cycle, Biden comes out and is like, oh, well, you can't go on his platform and tout his endorsement because he's anti-trans, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, that's a losing fucking message. We have to be communicating with these people. We have to be infiltrating these algorithms. Because what the right has done, it's not just that they had Joe Rogan. They didn't have Joe Rogan. We had Joe Rogan. We fumbled Joe Rogan. But what they do have, and the reason they were able to acquire Joe Rogan and so many people like him, is that they've built up an infrastructure within the algorithm that feeds people in a pipeline. They start, and we can talk about this with young white men because that's a large demographic that has shifted, but it applies to a lot of different people. But I'll speak as a former young white man myself. Like when young white men go and like try and figure out how to solve the problems in their life. Yo, I ain't got no bitches. What do I do? I'm being bullied at school. What do I do? My parents are dicks. What do I do? And they go online to look for solutions to their problems. They're not getting solutions from us. And it's not because we ain't fucking trying. I try so hard to make content to speak to that kind of person. And I'm biased, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's because my content isn't good is the reason that it doesn't get a lot of traction. Because my other content gets a ton of traction. But that content doesn't, because the algorithm is not primed to serve my kind of content to the people seeking those kind of answers. Because for years, for decades, conservatives have spent millions and millions of dollars creating an ecosystem, not just one Joe Rogan, creating an entire ecosystem that thrives off each other, that gets connected to each other, that creates a pipeline. So that when people go looking for these answers to problems, which they do have, they see Democrats saying, hey guys, the GDP has actually grown. Grocery prices, yeah, they're higher, but look at these charts. And it's like, fuck, I agree with you that the charts do look good, but if you don't acknowledge the pain that people are going through, they're going to feel rejected. And they just get down the wrong pipeline. It's not going to be fixed overnight. We're not going to have a left-wing messiah to come and fix this. It is a concerted effort that needs to be top-down of allowing these independent media outlets. It doesn't have to be me. Please let it be me, George Soros. Hit me up. But like, it can be any of us. It has to be a concerted effort across many, many people to build up the ecosystem and the algorithm.
And I think that's some great points. Is it's not going to be fixed, like you said, by Joe Roganing our way out of it, because we can't just throw that out there and stick. I think you're right that infrastructure needs to be built up, but that's part of building that infrastructure, right? And that's just part of a much bigger picture, a much bigger puzzle. Like the social media piece is huge, and now the Democrats are like, well, we fucked this up. Now we need to focus 100% on this, and they don't know how to do it or what to do. But that's not the entirety of the solution. And I think that's another big thing is like, I'm obviously a very big facts over feelings person, and I can look at those charts and be like, this is why I'm on board with this, but also look at the reality of people have feelings and people make decisions based on feelings, and we need a facts and feelings thing. And the Republicans and the right-wing pipeline just exploits those feelings for their own end. And we're just like, but look at the facts. Look at these facts right here. Your feelings are wrong. Here are the facts. Why aren't you doing what you should be doing to help yourself? And we need to find that balance of appealing to those feelings while using those facts to make good decisions for all of us.
And that's the reason why, a lot of times we'll be told, hey, stop attacking the Democrats. They're not the real enemy. But like, yes, they fucking are. The Republicans ain't losing me a fucking election. It's not Donald, again, like I said, it's not Donald Trump is just some political savant, some 80,000 IQ 3D chess genius beating our asses. No, it's incompetence on our end. Like, they are the people standing in the way of doing exactly what you just said. And it's funny because that whole thing, like, hey, you have to acknowledge someone's feelings in order to convince them that, like, they might need to change their own course of action. That's a very fucking, like left-leaning philosophical. That's fucking therapy talk, you know? And, you know, a lot of people who go to therapy are the same fucking liberal moderates, college-educated white people who we need to change the minds of, who are actively standing in our way. And it's like, how do you not understand this? They're like, oh, well, people, I always hear this like, oh, it's the media's fault. If the media were to actually report on things accurately, then no one would vote for Trump. It's like, fuck you. What do you mean it's the media? Is it do we hire the media to like get our message out for us, or do we have to actively work to get them to say the things that we want them to say? At least Donald Trump understands that. The things that he's incompetent at, he's very good at doing that. And for the past 8 years, Democrats have just refused to learn that lesson, and it's very frustrating.
So what you're saying is we need to create a pipeline that doesn't divert more people towards the right-wing mentality, which is obviously just it's like preventative healthcare, essentially in that sense. And then we also need to actually provide good healthcare and good policies to people in order to actually be effective and prevent, or at least provide a case against an accelerationist violent revolution sort of case.
So I'm going to give you, because I kind of blathered a lot about different things. Here's just a couple points. Here's a blueprint for how I think Democrats can turn this whole fucking thing around.
Yeah.
One, as I said, create that left-wing ecosystem. It doesn't take much. All of those millions and millions, if not billions of dollars that was just donated and lit on fire by the Kamala Harris campaign, just give like 20% of that, instead of donating it to the Democratic Party, and I'm speaking to you, Mark Cuban, and everyone else, and again, doesn't have to be me, I'd appreciate if it was me, but just like invest in a Daily Wire of your own. Not only will it be more effective towards winning election outcomes that you want, but it also has positive ROI. So like, just consider that for a second. Number two.
And the pieces are here too. Like, we already all exist. We just have no support underneath us to put it into some concerted effort like the Daily Wire. Like, I get Daily Wire advertisements all the time. I am clearly not the target audience for them, and I get the shit constantly. So, like, if we just had that type of stuff pushing the content we already make and giving us the money and infrastructure to make higher quality content, that has the research and the fact checking, whatever shit that Joe Rogan has, the people in the background to help that kind of shit. Like, that would make all of the difference in the world. Like, it's not like you got to build it from scratch. It's here. You just need to put it together.
Bro, I'm not even making this up. I made a TikTok because I talked to my fiance's little sister. She's a 19-year-old girl, not very politically engaged, but votes Democrat, right? And I asked her, hey, can you name me some like political influencers that you've seen or know of? And she listed a bunch of names that were Republicans, and Charlie Kirk. She said Charlie Kirk. I was like, how the fuck does this 19-year-old girl in Florida know who the fuck Charlie Kirk is? And I shit you not, that a clip of me saying that made it onto fucking Turning Point USA's America Fest hype video. And I was like, yeah, they understand. They get it. For some reason, they understand exactly what I am saying, but the people I am saying it to do not. Because it's also like, I don't know about you guys. I do this as a hobby. I would be so much a better propagandist for the powers that be out there if I could do this full time and didn't have to work a full-time job to get fucking healthcare and pay my fucking rent. Like, that's the case. And if you allow those fucking incubators to turn the massive amount of left-wing propagandists that we all are, just to turn up the dials and have effective communication between each other, then yeah, that's one thing that you need to do. You also need to fucking eat the anti-establishment pill. Like, you just have to do it. You have to just take the fucking axe to the Pelosi's, to the fucking Schumers, to the Bidens, to everyone in the party that represents the establishment. And that's going to probably cut off a few heads that don't deserve to be cut off, but it has to happen, because as long as you are seen as the establishment, you're going to get weaker and weaker and weaker, and you need new blood to come in and invigorate your base. And your base, I'm sorry, it's not fucking 2008 anymore. The base ain't in the middle. We're in a bipolar model now. The bases are on the far left and the far right. The middle is actually the weakest part of the entire structure. Median voter theorem does not work. when you have a bipolar fucking ecosystem like we do now. If 9/11 happened today, it would split the country in half. We would not see a fucking rally around the flag effect. We would see utter chaos. It is a different environment than we used to have, and we need to start treating politics like you're trying to advance the goals of your actual base instead of fucking cowtailing to the middle every single time. If you can do those two things, it should actually be fairly easy to be an idiot like Donald Trump. But if you can't do those two things, you're going to keep getting your asses kicked.
Yeah, I mean, I have in here is like, obviously just the messaging on issues that, were in favor of the Democrats as far as the economy goes and immigration goes. Both of those things should have been a dunk for the Democrats, but they just completely just tossed the ball up in the air right in front of the freaking hoop. But more than that is, I think that they just completely they went too right. They went way right trying to bring in Liz Cheney voters when I don't think there's no such thing as a Liz Cheney voter anymore. I think like they don't exist really, especially as a just large group across America, especially in swing states. So I think like obviously those are the two biggest things that you could point to for this election as to why they like just completely lost when it was a very winnable election.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's always that way too. It's the Democrats try out Republicans in the fourth quarter. Like they did this with fucking immigration. The immigration, I will never forgive them for the stance that they pivoted on to immigration. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? You're not going to beat Republicans on anti-brown people. Like they've got that shit on lock. And why are you shutting down the border? Like you're not going to get any new voters by doing Republican light on immigration. And it wasn't even Republican light. It's just like they copy pasted their whole fucking immigration policy, basically. And like, this is our policy now. Will you vote for us now? Do you like me now, daddy? And I don't understand what the fucking thought was. Like, they would have had better luck going full, okay, they keep accusing us of having open borders. Let's do open borders. Let's abolish ICE, tear down the border checkpoints, let everything flow free. Like that would have been a better strategy than just copy pasting the thing that Republicans have built an entire infrastructure around for campaigning. And it's just that Overton window that they punt every single time. They're like, oh, we're behind, and Republicans have done a really great job of making this the issue. And we've done a horrible job at defending against their rhetoric and creating our own version of that issue and our solutions to it. So now we're just going to try to catch up with them and outdo them on the same issue that they've had tons and tons of time to develop. And it's mind-boggling to me.
Immigration is the perfect policy to make this point because I swear to God, I think moderate Democrats just have a fucking loser complex where they just assume that they're going to lose and there's nothing they can do about it. And so that's why they keep like trying to do what they see as the Republicans being the victors are doing. And it doesn't work because look at what Donald Trump just did with immigration. The current Republican Party immigration platform, it would make fucking George Bush blush. Like, it's George Bush is actually to the left of Joe Biden if you look at their stances on immigration. Just straight up, this isn't hyperbole. If you look at their actual policy, George Bush was far more pro-immigration than Joe Biden.
Well, hell,
and
Reagan was too. So.
Reagan was too, right? It's Donald Trump came in and said, fuck this. I'm going to drag the country with me on this immigration topic. And if he were to have come out as vitriol and fascistic in 2016 as he did in 2024, it would not have worked. But he took a position to the base, what he saw as the base of the Republican Party at that time, and was correct in doing so. And when he did that, he not only dragged the entire Republican Party to mass deportation as part of the official Republican Party platform, he dragged the fucking Democrats to my policy in 2016, but a little worse, is what your position is now. Mm-hmm. And like that should show, because I always hear like, oh, well, America just isn't ready for open borders. And it's like, that's because Democrats have spent the past 4 fucking years telling other Democrats that this is what we need to do. I fucking promise you, if Joe Biden had been like, No more kids in cages. We're making sure he made it his fucking life's mission to increase immigration. It's not like the fucking data isn't going to back you up. Even under fucking Biden, with all of the illegal immigration, the Congressional Budget Office projects that the illegal immigrants who entered under Biden during the Biden administration alone will increase the GDP by nearly $1 trillion. I'm sorry, no, I lied. I did not mean the GDP. I meant tax revenue. It is going to have a net impact on our deficit by $1 trillion. The numbers are on our side. Open borders is the objectively correct thing to do as long as you can build up the infrastructure to support it.
Mm-hmm.
You can make that argument a hell of a lot more effectively. But if you're just going to make the argument, oh, well, yeah, immigrants are bad, we're going to be the ones to fix that problem. No, you're not, because the people who've always said immigrants are bad are going to be better at fixing that problem than you are. Like, if you're someone who thinks immigrants are bad, if I thought that, I'd vote Republican every single day of the week, no matter what the Democrats said. And unless you present opposition to that, well, the Democrats are going to start going along with what you're telling them to think, that immigrants are bad. We just need a less harmful way of fixing them. But no, that's never going to work, because that is more complicated to explain, because you also have to lie. And you can't even use the truth, which is, yeah, no, guys, not one time did Kamala Harris say, hey, guys, actually, the fucking Haitian immigrants in Ohio aren't eating cats and dogs. They've actually drastically increased the city's fucking tax revenue. They've filled jobs that weren't able to be filled before. They provided more tax revenue to help with the opioid crisis of the native inhabitants of that city. She never said that. She just punted the fucking issue. And it's just like, why? Why?
The Republican leadership in that city have facilitated. Like, she could have, and that's the other thing, is like, why are we Republicans never miss a chance to take a problem and then assign whatever it is. It doesn't matter what the problem is or if Democrats have ever touched it at all. They take that problem and they immediately assign that blame to Democrats. And Democrats never do the same thing. And like, we have so many opportunities to do that without even making shit up. Like, the opioid crisis in GOP-led states is far worse, right? Like West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky. That would have been a perfect pivot. Not only are the immigrants good, they are helping solve the problems that Republicans created with this opioid crisis and all of these types of things. Like, you could have tied that together in such a beautiful.
Why do you think the Republicans don't want them here? It's a pretty simple messaging strategy.
Yeah, it's insane. But I mean, like, I will never. The thing that will stick in my brain forever is just the embodiment of this when Democrats have the opportunity to just slam dunk a talking point home and just, fumble it out of the entire arena was in the Biden-Trump debate when they started arguing over golf swings and Trump was like, oh, I can outdrive you. And Biden had the perfect opportunity to be like, yeah, I bet you could, because I've actually spent the last 4 years working and doing my job instead of sitting around on a golf course, because that's all he did was sit around on a fucking golf course. You had the perfect opportunity. They got in a dick measuring contest over what geriatric motherfucker with a broken hip can putt a golf ball further. And it's just like, and this is what they do every single time. Is like, you have the opportunity to just slam these talking points home and burn your opponents to the ground, and you just let it go. I'll give Obama. Obama was good at it, but he's been really one of the only ones that has ever been able to just, throw those insults and direct that blame where it needed to go.
TJ, my co-host, Powers Taken Not Given, co-host on the Left Wing podcast, he makes this point often that Obama is the Michael Jordan of politics, because he was a generational talent that absolutely dominated when he was playing the game, but has completely failed as a coach and manager because he just doesn't understand why everyone else can't just be as good as he was. He picked fucking Biden in 2020.
Yo.
He picked Hillary in 2016. And he continued to support, Biden and eventually Kamala. Like, he continued to support Biden over being president. He didn't come out and tell him to stop before it was too late. Like, he has just picked loser after loser after loser ever since he took office. He consolidated the party around Biden instead of Bernie in 2020. Like, it's incredible how terrible this guy's track record is. And it's kind of what you said. Like, he was good at doing this thing, and he's relying on people who cannot do it. and it's really dumb. But yeah, if Biden had done the fucking Obama shit, we'd be sitting in a different fucking world right now. Even if it was the Obama shit where he got the messaging right, but the policy kind of failed, like,
Yeah.
we'd still not have Trump as president right now. We
It
have other
is
problems,
messaging. Like the
but
policy's great, and that's what we care about. But you win or lose based on messaging. It has nothing to do with the policy you pass. If it had to do with policy, Republicans wouldn't have won an election since Eisenhower.
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's the other thing I always say when Democrats tell me, like, oh, it's not Joe Biden accomplished XYZ. He should have won. It's like, well, fuck. If people were voting based on policy, why do you think we lose all the time? Do you not think our policy is good? Like, it's a self-defeating argument. And, well, yeah, Democrats' policy hasn't always been good, but it has been fucking better, obviously, and that doesn't matter to the American people because the messaging is what actually fucking gets shit done. It's helpful to have good policy, but you don't need it, as Donald Trump has proven for the past 8 fucking years.
I mean, as Reagan proved, as Bush proved, as Nixon fucking proved. Like, it just, yeah.
So we kind of interrupted you when we were saying, you know, if you were going to run the Democratic Party, what would be the couple things that you change? First thing, obviously, would be creating a left-wing pipeline that is more substantial than the basically non-existent one that is out there today. I would think that your number two is going and massively pushing for leftist economic, populist policies, such as universal health care, child care, education, housing, stuff that pays for itself over time is, the most humane policies we can think of without radically changing our economy, helps workers and small businesses, and basically every developed country that we consider ourselves a peer to already has those things. I guess what is the next thing for you?
So, kind of an addendum on that second point is maintaining message discipline and connecting the good outcomes to the good policy. That is something that Biden failed at entirely. Build Back Better, I have my fucking qualms with Build Back Better, but it was good policy. It was... We had the best economy over the past 4 years of the entire world. Like, and it's not even relatively close. And a lot of that is because of the infrastructure spending in Build Back Better. The problem is people aren't able to see that. Like, people are far more likely to attribute personal failure to some sort of systemic reasoning. The economy is bad. That's why I'm not getting paid well. But if they get a raise, then they're more likely to attribute that to their own personal success. I got a raise because I worked harder, And so when you just do good policy, but don't day in and day out beat people over the head with the fact that you're the one responsible for that good policy, they're not going to know you did it, and you might as well not have from an electoral perspective. That's one thing Donald Trump is very fucking good at. He beats people over the head day in and day out with consistent messaging on the same topics that he knows are winners. Don't just be like, oh, I'm going to make this bill, we're going to do universal health care, yada, yada, yada. No, every single fucking day. If you don't have the votes on your side, burst into the fucking Joe Manchin's office with a fucking camera and a live stream and be like, yo, why don't you support this? It's not that hard, but they just refuse to do it. They pretend the bully pulpit doesn't exist. They pretend that the only way to talk to voters is through mainstream media. They pretend that they don't have these fucking information delivery systems to the entire world in their hands every single day, and they can put it live whenever they fucking want. They pretend that we don't exist to help spread this messaging. So I'm going to tell you, all of the fucking leftists who criticize the Democratic Party all the time and you claim is the reason you're losing elections, just fucking be message discipline on a couple different things. Universal health care, more housing, more infrastructure spending, more green energy infrastructure spending. You maintain message discipline on that, we're going to go to fucking bat for you. You show us that you actually care and you're going to put your money where your fucking mouth is, yeah, You don't even have to fucking build it up for us. We'll do it for free. You should build it up for us because it'll be more effective, but we'll do it for free for you guys. If you think we're so goddamn powerful that we're losing you these elections, maybe, I don't know, try doing the good shit that we're telling you to do that you know is the good shit, and stop pretending like people like moderates are going to suddenly fucking switch from the Republicans to vote for you to do the things that they want done but worse. It doesn't, it's not going to work. So yeah, do that. And as I said, it cannot be, you need to create an enemy. And the enemy needs to be the fucking rich. Like, the reason that Trump won, one of the reasons he created an enemy, fucking immigrants, and he whooped your ass at that, guys, because you just let him. But we have an enemy that just literally got assassinated, and 40% of young people just support the killer. Like, not even like I'm saying like, hey, no, like we should blame the system even though violence is bad. No, they're straight up like, yeah, he should do it again. And that should be a clear message of like, yeah, no, there's a clear enemy that people want to fucking hate to the point where they'll support people for straight up killing them in the streets. Maybe, I don't know, use messaging to go to bat against these people. Maybe that might be a good idea.
I want to point out one person in the comments who's been kind of saying the same thing over and over and over again. Risk here is saying that, like, calling us out. I'll acknowledge that comment that we've been preaching progressivism and have only talked about, Biden, Pelosi, Trump, Rogan this entire podcast, which is true. We talked a little bit about AOC and our frustrations about her not getting a leadership position we feel like she should have gotten. Right now, we've obviously been talking about the progressive policies we will go to bat for no matter who brings them forward. Like, I don't give a shit who's putting the policy up. That's really what we care about. It's not necessarily the leadership, just the policy that leadership brings, and it can be anybody. But he keeps going on about third-party candidates, and I've spent so much time trying to explain how third-party candidates are not the answer in the current system that we have. We do not need to uplift. In this comment, he says, uplift a leader that's worth a fuck. A third-party leader now, 4 years of prep needed to beat a well-funded duopoly. No, you do not understand. If this is what you believe, you do not understand how this system works. And it's frustrating to me because third-party candidates for president are as big a grifters as Donald Trump. They're better grifters than Donald Trump because they can do this indefinitely. Donald Trump gets, he's turned it into a fucking decade of it, but they do it. Jill Stein does this every year. Fucking whoever that libertarian asshole who always kept running did it every year. But they know that they can't win, and even if they did win, which is again a statistical impossibility, there is absolutely zero way with the Electoral College and a winner-take-all system that a third-party candidate can win. There's just zero way until we get ranked choice voting, until we get popular vote. No way a third-party candidate can statistically win. Just get that out of your head. But even to humor that idea, a third-party candidate wins as president, then what? They've got Congress and the Senate. They've got the House and the Senate that is Republicans and Democrats who are not going to support anything they do. So they sit up there and get nothing done, or they fall in line with one of those two parties and do the exact same shit that a Republican or a Democratic president would have done. There's a reason that Bernie Sanders didn't run as an independent. And I get so fucking frustrated with the third-party people who are like, we just need to run a third-party president. And it's like, where have you done the fucking work? Why have you not put any of these third-party people in Congress where they can actually win? Where are all the congressional seats and the senators? You don't have any interest in putting in that work, but then you'll beat your drum and say, we need to put in the work to do a third-party president. It's like, that's not going to fucking happen. And even if it did, what's the point? I don't understand why this is such a difficult concept to get. If we want to change for a more progressive party, we need to do the same thing that MAGA has done with the Republican Party and get a coalition around a few singular issues that we can get a bunch of people on board for to seize power within the party that exists before we could ever make those changes to start making third parties viable. And then I would love to see third parties viable. And that's the way we have to do it, because it's not going to happen by just asking Congress to give us a third-party president, because that's literally what would have to happen, because a third party is never going to win 270 votes in the Electoral College.
I see what you're saying, and I would like to raise you that it's not that third-party candidates don't want to put in the, or third parties in general don't want to put in the work or whatever. It's that they physically cannot win. Under a first past the vote voting system, you will only ever have two viable parties. If you want an in-depth explanation into this, look up CGP gray voting systems on YouTube. I guarantee you it'll be worth your time. But the long story short is, whenever you have a winner-take-all system, and everyone knows this to be true, people are incentivized not to vote for who they think best represents them, but who they think has a best chance of beating the guy that's going to hurt them the most.
Mm-hmm.
And that will always, over the course of time, have candidates and politicians and parties consolidating into two oppositional forces. Until we get ranked choice voting, we get a more parliamentary system, we get rid of this stupid first past the post winner take all system, no matter how hard third parties work, they will never win. And if they do win, that means they're replacing a fallen other party. There will never be a viable long-term third party, because that's just how the rules of the game are set up to work. And if you want that to change, forget whatever your third party fucking like thing is. That's the only policy that you should be getting legislators in positions of power in order to change, because until that happens, it will never ever work. I also just want to say one thing. C-Bank, he said, I like John. He's a great communicator. Thank you, C-Bank. If you want to hear more from me, definitely check out Counterpoint Politics on TikTok and Instagram, and check out the Left Wing Pod on YouTube. We have Off Dragon as a recurring guest, and I'm sure he'll be back on again soon.
Absolutely.
Shameless plug.
And we're going to let you do that here at the end, which we're getting to. But I wanted to say, what I meant putting in the work is putting in the work to build a third party is going to start in your local elections and in the House and Senate, right? Like, if you don't get a third party with some sort of power to vote on those policies that will allow their party to continue to gain power, they're not going to do it, because Democrats and Republicans aren't going to give you those changes to allow a third party to win, because that hurts them, right? Why would you say I'm going to vote to give myself a less of a chance of winning and give me more competition in a position of power that I've already gained? So when they just go straight to the top, to the presidency, if you see anybody running a third party for president, they are grifting you. They have no interest in winning the presidency. They don't give a fuck about you. They are exploiting you for campaign donations, and they want to lose, and they know they're going to lose, so they can come back next election cycle and do it all over again. So I think we've kind of beat this to death. We're going on hour and a half now, over an hour and a half, I think. Always keeping it at that hour long podcast. So we really appreciate you coming on here and talking about all the stuff that's been going on. I think it's been great. We hope to have both you and TJ on at some point together. I'm very excited to be back on your podcast again as well. We'll let you give your shameless plugs all over again here. Any projects you're working on, anything you want to plug, please do.
Yeah, I feel bad that I jumped the gun on the shameless plug. Now I just feel embarrassed to say it again at Counterpoint Politics, TikTok and Instagram, and the Left Wing Pod on YouTube and Spotify. But since I just said that, I'll also point out an excellent book I see on Taylor's bookcase there called Branding Democrats. They also have a podcast. That's a pretty small book. That's some pretty good stuff in it. I would recommend to read to anyone out there.
Yeah, I got it before Christmas, and I just haven't had an opportunity to read it yet. But it's on
right there.
Yeah,
look at that. Have you guys been on their podcast?
Yeah, many times.
Okay.
Well, I have.
Yeah,
they've been on ours too.
Ken Weber came on our podcast a couple weeks ago. That's how I kind of got introduced to him.
Gabby was here too. Yeah.
Yep, and Gabby. Yep.
But yeah, no, they're great. Absolutely. Go follow them. Follow John here, Counterpoint Politics. Also, Powers Taken, Not Given, TJ. He does great content. Him and John do a podcast together. So check him out as well. As always, we appreciate the hell out of you giving us your time, energy, money for those who do that. We appreciate that. It's since we still haven't figured out how to get that George Soros check delivered to the right mailbox. That's what we
coming any day now. Any day, I'm sure it'll be in the mailbox.
I'm gonna have to ask you for money again, but until that George Soros check comes, you guys are what help us pay the bills, because all of this shit costs money to do, unfortunately, and You guys are what make that possible. And even if you can't afford that, we just appreciate you watching because we do get some money from viewership and stuff like that. And obviously, we're only doing this because you guys listen to us, and that's the main reason. And the money shit is the unfortunate side effect we have to deal with in the process. So thank you so much for being here. Obviously, offyourwagon.com, you can get Let Them Eat Toast merch. You can get Off Your Wagon merch. Follow me, Off Your Wagon, on all the platforms. And we will see you next week. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Kwanzaa, Chinese New Year, Hanukkah, all the things. Thanks for being here, John.
Thank you.
Yep, perfect ending. Love it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Kwanzaa,
See you next
all the
week.
things.